good. Do you all want to get in on the jumping thing?
No, that's all you. That's all you, bud.
How's it going, everybody? Give you a quick little update on what we've been working on over the last week. Jake and I been playing around with CAD and where we want the turbo to sit. So we've played around with a couple of different ways of having it sit either parallel to the engine or slightly forward and tilted in. And through all of that discussion and planning and seeing where it fits, if it clears this wall or hits the intake or where it'll fit, we've got two really good locations that we like so far. And I've just got through completing the parallel turbo manifold, which will locate the turbo kind of where it is currently sitting in this CAD representation, right beside the engine. So I'm just going to take you through what it is I do to make these two flange faces, which is what will bolt to the engine and what will bolt to the turbo, connect. So it's a nice sweeping, clean flow path. This one's really complicated, so bear with me, but I think we can get through it. So real easy. Now I've got my flanges both started. That'll be part of the manifold. I have no rhyme or reason as to why I picked a 0.2 offset. They're going to be a 1/2 inch thick total, but it doesn't really look like it makes sense, but I promise it will make sense in a minute. So now I want to go from this face to this face with a loft, and to do that I need to make a couple planes, and I'm being extra fancy, so we're going to use 2 planes. I'm going to go from there to here and here, so that's 1 plane. And then we're going to do another one from here to the center, so we're going to have a crossing area where we get to define our rails for how the flange will look. Sorry, for how the tubing will look. So I'm just on each individual plane, I'm going to sketch the rails to guide our loft. All I'm doing here is just selecting the intersecting points that I want to join. So you might be able to kind of understand what I'm doing, but that's the short version of how we're gonna loft it from this face to these 3 now separate faces. Come in here, we'll loft, we're gonna go from here. There we go. And so then the second half of the loft, we're going to grab a set of rails, and that's just going to guide it. So you see the tubes like really streamline and just goes from one to the next. So now I'm going to go and select my rails that I made. That one. So now it gets this weird bulbous, and it just helps maintain more of that cross-sectional area through the tube. So that's roughly what we're trying to achieve, right? But the big thing with this is that it is currently paper thin. Like it is a negligible thickness. So we'll jump over. We'll thicken this guy up. We're only doing 1/8 of an inch right now. It's just going to be 3D printed for testing. So if we decide we want to go thicker later, we can. But I'm just going to rifle through this next one, and I'll speed it up, and then we'll get to the next part of finishing up the flange faces. So the last little bit I just did is I'm creating a cutaway piece for the next parts of the 2 flanges. So I'm just going through and I'm doing a lofted body, and then again grabbing my rails if I can see them. And I get that new body. Alright, and if you notice, I closed in those holes because I'm going to make new ones. I'm going to add in these 4 bodies. I'm going to go combine. Select the target body we want to cut. Select the tool body. We're going to cut. Let the computer think. If I hide the body, you can see it cut it away, and it shaped it so it follows the flow path I want it to take. Boom. We can add our tubing back in. This one looks really wonky. I don't quite like it. And if we like the positioning, I'll come back in and tweak it, maybe add more rails to really sculpt it. Like I like how direct this one is, but if you look at this one, it's really thin. But that's a problem for another day. So for now, we're just gonna thicken it up and give it some meat so we can 3D print it and test fit it this weekend. So now I have a small little flat area, as you can see, and then it sweeps into the pipe and comes out the other side with a small flat area before it begins its sweep. So it's not making, I don't want to make a super thin point like in this area in here. Like if I just went like from flange face to flange face, it would make this thin little ramp that I'm worried if we make too thin of an area where the flanging surface is, the high heat that the rotary puts out will melt it over time. So for now, looks pretty good, looks 3D printable. Only thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go select all of our bodies, tell it to join, and voila. Now we've got an RX8 forward mount turbo manifold. So I'm gonna get these thrown into the printers and get them started printing out. And this weekend, hopefully we'll do some test fitting. And through the magic of editing, I'm gonna be in the barn now. All right, so we made it into the barn. Now all the CAD's done, 3D printing's done. We got our 2 manifolds all made up. One that's probably gonna put the turbo in a cooler spot that you'll never see because there's gonna be a big intercooler in the way. So we're probably gonna scrap that one, not even use it. And our parallel mount turbo to have the turbo sit right down next to the engine, probably gonna be the one we're gonna go with. We're gonna test fit this one first and move on into the engine bay.
Just super nauseous from wearing the glasses.
I think we should take off the.
So now the problem is we're gonna have to have studs on that.
Yeah.
How are we gonna put the turbo on the studs? Unless you think there's enough room to.
I think there'll be enough room.
You need to take out
The
your
top
lower
ones are gonna be studs.
You need to take out your lower intake to get room right now.
So very exciting stuff. We've got the turbo in. We've got a semi-bolted, semi-zip tied in place just because we don't have the right bolts and studs in the 3D printed mock-up, but it's sitting flush to the flange, and we really like the location of it. We just put the upper intake manifold in, and it actually went in really easy. It was really close to the turbo, but just the right amount of clearance where we can actually slide the upper intake manifold onto the turbo. So now I think Jake's pretty happy with the design. I don't think we're even going to bother putting the purple one in. It's just now that we have a physical thing in our hand, it looked cool in CAD, and the location of the turbo was going to be cool. But honestly, the flow characteristics that are probably going to come out of that weird elbow-shaped long tube, short tube header probably wasn't going to do the best for us, and you're not going to see it anyways, because all right here is going to be an intercooler, so you're not going to see any of this. So I think that wraps up this bit of the project, and we'll work on going towards the intake, I think, next time. Jake? Intake? Yeah, we're going to start going towards the intake in the following month. Thanks for hanging around.